Dear brothers, morning. What's up, boys? Hopefully you guys had a terrific day yesterday and enjoyed the yogurt episode. I got a lot of feedback on that, so I'm gonna have to try out some other yogurts that you guys recommended, which is all good and well. So pretty stoked about that. And that's about it about yogurt. On to the next thing. So most of you probably know at this point, at any given time, I am going through at least 2 books. And what I mean by that is I'm always reading some kind of fiction book, and then I am always going through a couple of nonfiction books. As a Man Thinketh is a book that I read just relatively often. I'll go through some of Viktor Frankl's work pretty often. C.S. Lewis I'll read during the month pretty often, the Bible. But I'm usually always reading some kind of fiction book. I just finished the Red Rising series maybe a month and a half ago, which I loved, and I needed something else in the fiction world to kind of tip my fancy, if you will. And I happened upon this series by John Gwynne called the Bloodsworn Trilogy. And right now only 2 of the 3 books are out, and I think the 3rd comes out sometime in October, Lord willing. I've gotten through the first 2, and I have loved every second of them. So the books are basically this Norse lore and mythology series that's kind of built around this group of gods that are kind of various animals, and they basically all work against one another and burn the whole world to the ground. And in the aftermath of that, there are groups of normal humans, of your typical flesh and blood, and then there are what are called the tainted. So those are the people who have some of the various gods' blood running in their veins. So there was like a rat god, a wolf god, a snake god, a dragon, a bear, etc. So the first book follows 3 characters, which you come to love, and it's inevitable that eventually they're all going to kind of converge on a similar path. And I'm not going to spoil a whole lot of the book. It's really terrific, but if you enjoy kind of mythology-based books and certainly fantasy books as a whole, this will become a favorite of yours just like it has of mine. But I want to talk about an aspect of the book that really stuck with me, and it's something that Gwynne, I think did a really great job of portraying as a conundrum or an important issue that men face. And so one of the characters' names is Varg. And he's introduced as a thrall, which just means slave, in the beginning of the book. And eventually he joins this band of warriors called the Bloodsworn. And unbeknownst to him, he actually has some of the wolf god's blood going through his veins. So he is a tainted. And upon finding this out, and then subsequent events in the book, he finds out that wolf that kind of traces through his veins is very hard to control. And there are times when that wolf kind of goes free, just flies out of his cage, especially when he becomes angry or is in defense of his, fellow blood-sworn warriors. Something goes awry, and sometimes that wolf just goes nuts. It's, he sees red, world goes black, and he just goes wild. And this is when severe violence kind of springs out of him. He becomes this absolute animal, this wolf, tearing, thrashing, biting, destroying everything that lies in his path. And it's just this bloodlust that takes him over. And it becomes very tantalizing to him. And he wants to unleash it, but he has this feeling that, he almost doesn't have control of it. Or he wants to control it, but he doesn't have control of it. And his kind of mentor, love interest, which we haven't fully borne out per se in the books, is a woman named Rukia, although it looks like Rokia in the books, but apparently R-O-K or R-O is R-I-R. I'm still trying to work that out. But anyways, Rukia has one of the sole jobs of helping him to control his wolf, she being also of wolf blood. And so she understands it. So her goal is to help him manage that and be able to control it. And there are multiple scenes when they're preparing for battles or skirmishes, and he has this inner dialogue about keeping that snarling wolf at bay. And he starts to tell that inner wolf to stay calm, be patient, wait your turn. You are under my control and not the other way around. You may be the animal, but I am your master and you're going to obey me. And really, the most fascinating part about the Bloodsworn is that they desperately try to keep their identities hidden. You know, the tainted are not welcome in the world in this book. And they have collars put around their necks, or thrall collars, they call them. And that basically gives control to whoever the master is that put it on them. So humans basically become god slavers, if you will. And so this makes his control of his wolf even more important, because if the world knew his true identity, he'd be enslaved. And so I'm telling you guys, this book is incredible. I'm not doing it as much justice as I should, but if you're really into fantasy books, you should absolutely read this. But what I want to talk about and think on is the taming of the animal for a second. So the first thing to understand is, because Varg has the wolf inside of him, that means he is, first of all, capable of ungodly amounts of violence, unconscionable fury. And when the wolf is set free from its cage, there's no coming back. It sees red and nothing stops until all of the enemies around have their throats ripped out. Simple as that. And this also means that he has a great power, which when left unchecked is going to lead to destruction beyond compare. Uncontrolled violence incurs the deadliest of consequences. The second thing to understand is that because of this capability, he must also have the ability to show restraint over it. If you're capable of severe violence, that must mean we know that there's the ability to have the complete opposite. So to have restraint over it, to control it, to wield it, if you will. To be a good man in light of it, someone who fights for those around him and who's capable of doing the right thing. And that's kind of this battle that we're seeing between the human side and the wolf side. And he's trying to find a man who can control that wolf, that baser creature, which knows nothing but quarter and violence and is, able to temper its bite. Use the wolf's power and violence, but only in doses or only as needed. Only in severe cases is when that thing's going to go full throttle. And so lastly, in having control of this creature, he can be a man of extraordinary character, but also a very dangerous man. He can still show kindness and love and empathy and gentleness, but still be capable of outrageous amounts of fury and savagery. And fellas, that is what we should all be striving to be. The good man is not the one incapable of being dangerous. It is the man who is capable of terror, yet has it under voluntary control. We've talked about this before. Under only the most difficult and necessary circumstances will all of that violence get let loose. Only when somebody comes against your family, somebody messes with your friends, they attack your children, they attack you. Only then will they see what a grave mistake that is. And although we're called to be men of peace and to be tempered and to be upright and to make things work and to smooth situations over, we are still men. And to be true to ourselves as men, you must be capable of defending that which is precious and to the fullest extent. Mediation is great, but you've got to be able to flip the stitch when the time comes. There is no savagery like that of a man protecting his loved ones. Hell hath no fury to compare. But what we have to understand, guys, is that the animal we have beneath our skin, the one that we want to let loose, or that if God forbid we have to let loose, it has to be fed. It has to be trained. It has to be brought into the Colosseum, if you will, to build its muscles and build its strength and its behaviors. It's got to be brought into the classroom to learn tactics and techniques. It's got to be brought to the food hall and fed and allowed to recover appropriately and trained vigorously. And although you work it hard, you train that animal to be lethal and of the highest danger, your prayer is that you will never, ever, ever have to unleash it. that that those capabilities can stay below the surface, that it can lay dormant and never has to be unleashed onto the poor soul that messes with you or messes with your family. But the moment where it becomes clear that it has to be set free, where the animal is free from its restraints, ensure that it is strong, well-fed, intelligent, and above all else, it's unrelenting until the job is done. Remember, guys, there's nothing virtuous about the soft man. He's not capable of being dangerous and thus has nothing to control or fight against. He's just a bunny rabbit, as Jordan Peterson likes to talk about. The violent man, that's the virtuous man, because he has put that violence, that wolf, under voluntary control. Lord willing, none of you will ever have to express such a side. But never think for a moment that you should not be trained and capable. That's a fatal flaw, and one that men today we can't allow. It just can't happen. Something goes awry, you must be capable of action. Hopefully you can mediate, hopefully you can, bring a situation down, desensitize things a little bit, but you've got to be capable when the moment comes. And so I encourage you guys, find your animal, tame it, nourish it, make sure it's always prepared, and always be ready, fellas. You just never know when the day's going to come. Lord willing, it won't. But make sure that your animal's ready to go if that time comes. I love all of you. God bless. Be strong. Let's get after it today. Thank you for all of your support. That's it, boys. Let's get after it. We'll see you.